Welcome back to Donington Park, where the Toyo Tyres 7 race series is heading out onto the circuit. It's the 420R category, and it's their final race of the season. We've only just recovered, quite honestly, from yesterday's race, which was an absolute barnstormer. It kept us guessing right down until the final couple of corners. Proper 7 race series action, slipstreaming aplenty, multiple lead changes, and by the checkered flag, about 6 or 7 of them who realistically could have still won the race. So hopefully, our second 30-minute encounter of the weekend is going to be just as exciting. The cars are out on their green flag lap then, led by, for this second race, I believe, our race winner. No, it's actually Russ Ollivant who has got the pole position for this one, because it looks as though there is a slightly shuffled grid. Yeah, I think the top 9 finishes from yesterday have been reversed to form the grid for race number 2, which just adds an extra bit of unpredictability into what is already a very unpredictable championship. It is not Michael Gibbons on pole position, it's Russ Ollivant who should have the advantage. There we go, with Gary Tootle alongside him. Jose Magales, who started on pole position yesterday but didn't finish as high up the order as he'd have liked, starting 3rd this time alongside Jonathan Mitchell on row 2. Row 3 then for Justin Armstrong and Gary Smith. It's Anthony Barnes and Mark Stansfield who start on row number 4. They were 3rd and 2nd respectively yesterday, whilst yesterday's winner Jay McCormack has to come from 9th on the grid this time. He's got Lewis Tootle for company on row 5. 6th row then for Steve Riley and Stuart Calder. On row 7 of the grid we will find Ian Cowley alongside Matt Spark, with Mark Drain and Philip Nagel on row 8. Top 20 then completed by Matt Welch and Paul Begley, Charles Holroyd and Duncan Greenaway. Row 11 then for Julian Carey and Ian Noble on that 11th row, with row 12 shared by Jamie Winrow and William Scully. We're now starting to get into some of those who had issues yesterday. Winrow had to pit with damage. Scully was a lap down by the flag. Matt Drew, Adam White and Ryan Grant, meanwhile, were all non-finishers after what was at times a bruising but always an entertaining first race. This time around though, Piers Pryor, we have a reversed grid. Normally I'd say that would guarantee a little bit more excitement. It's hard to imagine a more exciting race than we had yesterday though.
What a race we had yesterday, and we said it during yesterday's race. Starting position is fairly irrelevant.
Yes.
it was anyone within the top 10, 15 places on the first few laps that could have been up near the front, and I think it was our eventual winner who was. I think he spent most of the first half of the race outside the top 6 or 7. Yeah, well, he started 7th, Jay McCormack, which kind of proves your point. He's only 2 places further back than that today, so he definitely will be feeling that another race victory could be his. And you're right, he didn't really hit the front until the closing stages. So will that be the winning tactic here in race number 2? Let's find out. Half an hour on the clock. A big grid of 7s make their way out of the final turn. Then pole position for Russ Ollivant on the left. On the right, Gary Tootle. Will either of them hold the lead into Redgate corner? The slipstream already starting to bunch them all together, but it looks as though it will be one of those two maybe who holds the advantage. Jonathan Mitchell there peeking around the outside, but that looks to me like Gary Tootle who has got the lead. They turn through Redgate corner for the first time. Already wings going, flying cars off through the gravel trap. That didn't take long, Piers. Yeah. Oh no, there's an absolute smorgasbord of cars left, right and centre, with bodywork everywhere. Hopefully everyone actually was all just cosmetic damage. No, that looks like a very wounded 7th race series car, started it on the inside of Hollywood, so potentially the need for a safety car intervention if those can't get going once again. But at the front of the field we still race until the safety car boards.
Yes, now let's try and figure out who's still there, because I think the first car to go around was the number 71 of Jonathan Mitchell. There you can see, so Mitchell was about 3rd going through the first turn. He collided with somebody and around he went, and there's another driver there getting out of the car. That's good to see, but it means that that car is going to need recovering. I'd be amazed if we don't at the very least end up with a safety car. Here we are, though, side by side for the lead. Forget that, we're 3 wide for the race lead. And who's this charging around the outside line down towards the braking zone? That might be Gary Tootle, I think, trying to come back through to the front, locking up. Did they all keep it on the island? Yes, just about. That is number 23 out of the race. That's Justin Armstrong.
Oh,
that is Justin Armstrong now. That is the man who was on the podium yesterday, and that is his car with broken right front suspension. As we do now, we're getting a red flag. We're getting a red flag at the end of the opening lap of the race. Not a huge surprise, lots of recovery work to be done. Of course, the marshals will want to make sure that everyone involved is okay, and at the very least it's going to take a little while to get all of that debris and all of the damaged cars moved out of the way. So a red flag, a race stoppage, and the cars will likely be gridded back up. They'll probably stop them just at pit entry. Yep, there we go. Before then trying to figure out what order they need to get themselves into for an eventual race restart, which we'd imagine would be over a slightly shortened distance. We'll wait and see. So drivers being directed to stop. We have, though, I fear, lost a couple of our front runners. So one that we know was in it was Justin Armstrong. Another was Jonathan Mitchell. They started 5th and 4th respectively on the grid, and then I think others behind Piers sort of piled on in because visibility is so limited. You're all packed together so closely punched through that first corner. All of a sudden the cars in front of you move out of the way and you just don't have time to react.
It's just that concertina. We saw how close everyone was. The rolling start keeps everyone close, which is great for racing, but if something goes wrong at the front of the field, it's like dominoes falling down. And luckily, I think we've only lost 2 or 3 cars because that could have been a much more collateral-inducing accident. And that is the number 44, I think, who is coming into the pits to get some repairs. The number 12 getting back in his car to hopefully drive it back to the pits. Yeah, it looks like that car is under motive power.
I think that's Jay McCormack. I think that is 125, Jay McCormack, yesterday's winner, who has taken a lot of, because that was his colour, wasn't it? The blue with a red stripe. I think that's McCormack who's been in the fence.
Oh, I don't think he's going to make it back to the pits. I think he's just getting onto the tarmac because those front wheels are pointing in very different directions, and he's collected some of his bodywork from the circuit and with the idea of bringing it back. He's trying to get back to the circuit. I don't know whether he'll actually, or is he just making it easier for the low loader? That's good. That's good work there.
It is actually, yes, because I'm sure he's very frustrated with the way that his weekend and season, indeed.
Yeah, you can see the frustrations he's getting out of the car.
Oh no, Jay McCormack. Well, I mean, that is the danger of a reverse grid, isn't it? We said that starting position is irrelevant. It is to an extent, but it does put you back in the danger zone, doesn't it? Starting back end of the top 10. Okay, he started 7th yesterday and managed to make his way through the field, but you're never guaranteed, especially with a corner like Redgate, where we do often see these lap 1 squeezes, you're never guaranteed to make it through cleanly.
No, never guaranteed to make it through cleanly. Tell you what might be quite good business, though. I've got a business idea. I might start making 7 Series wheel arches.
Yes.
'Cause I feel like we've seen quite a few that need repairing or replacing this weekend. Unfortunate that we've had some drivers who have come to blows at the start of that race. We saw actually a pretty clean start generally in race number 1, despite them all being so close. Race number 2, everyone maybe just getting a bit slightly overconfident. It might have just been an accidental contact. We didn't see exactly the spark that ignited that incident. Everyone else sitting, waiting on the last corner, and we're starting to grid up, ready for a restart, because I think most of those cars down at Redgate are beginning to be removed. We'll keep you updated on the restart order. I imagine it looks like we'll probably go for another 2x2 restart, and the race time will be reduced.
Yes, and we'll go back to the original grid because we'd only completed 1 lap of racing. So just trying to, out of the window, tick off who is there. So Russ Oliver, Gary Tootle and Jose Magalesh are all present and correct. Then there is a damaged car. That's Gary Smith, I think, pulling up into 5th place on the grid, the number 20. He's missing his front bodywork. So it's that group, isn't it? 4th, 5th, 6th on the grid. They've all tangled, I think. And then the likes of Jay McCormack of compiling in later on. So Gary Smith with damage, but he is taking his grid position. Interesting that he didn't pull into the pit lane. There will then be a couple of gaps on the grid where the likes of Justin Armstrong, Jay McCormack, Jonathan Mitchell should have been. And so the next car that should appear is Anthony Barnes. I think that's him now coming towards us with the orange roll cage. If
it was the sort of 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th battle that caused that, then the rest of the field did very, very well to miss them all, because, a car stranded just off the racing line or on the road could easily have been collected by 4 or 5, or maybe avoiding cars could have made contact. So it's good heads-up driving. I think that's one thing that Caterham drivers and the 7 Series drivers are used to, is having to look through and ahead, because you have to think 2 or 3 stages ahead in these races, because it all comes down to slipstream, toes, concertinas, keeping momentum up, because as much as these cars have quite a decent amount of power, they are, again, the high drag nature of them means that you carry a bit of extra speed to the corner. It really can pay dividends in terms of track position at the next corner.
It definitely can. Anthony Barnes, I notice, is minus a left rear wheel arch, so he'll be visiting Piers Pryor's garage after the weekend to get a new one fixed. I think the next group of cars all look pretty clean. I'm trying to spot other gaps on the grid. There aren't many. I think McCormack we know is missing, but then Stuart Calder and Steve Riley I think have both pulled into position, Matt Sparky and Cowley. So yeah, you're right, very lucky that we didn't lose more from that really.
Are we gridding up on the grid in original order?
I believe so.
Yeah, with gaps, which is quite useful for us actually. And we've got some of the cars getting a little bit of attention. That's the fourth, is it fourth or sixth place? I can't see.
That's Gary Smith, yeah, sixth place.
Getting a little bit of attention from the mechanics, maybe just checking that everything is all well.
He was missing that nose bodywork, remember, so I think they're just making sure that the bodywork that is left is properly affixed to the car.
Yeah, wise.
So, and also I'm sure double checking the radiator and the front suspension and whatnot, because he's obviously had a frontal impact somewhere.
So we don't want to send these cars out in any condition that might endanger anyone, either the drivers or anyone else. So the team's doing a good job just making sure the cars are running safely, because of course these are pretty quick cars, aren't they, actually, in a straight line. They've got a very, very high power to weight ratio, and they race very, very close, so that, you know, the smallest issue could cause something to kick off. But I think one thing I do like about this championship is the fact that all the cars are in fact identical, but I don't think there's any two that look the same.
No, exactly. They're all uniquely liveried, which does make our job an awful lot easier, especially when they're changing position corner by corner, as was the case.
Oh, we're having someone pulling off. That's number 22 who's going straight into the pit lane.
Paul Begley.
So clearly needing some attention on that car with a bit of damage or something that needs looking at before it's safe to go rolling. So if they can get that fixed quite quickly, then they'll probably be allowed to join the back of the train. So we'll be starting on the rolling start at the back of the field. I would hope they might be forced to do a pit lane start. We'll see what happens there. That is the retrieve number 23. Clearly you got some serious damage on the front right hand corner, which is why that is not continued. And the exhaust damage as well. Of course, the exhaust hangs out over the right hand side of these cars, so that can be susceptible to damage. There's the damage to the front of Jay McCormack's car. Justin Armstrong's was the red number 23 that we saw recovered, which just leaves Jonathan Mitchell. There we go. So they're all recovered now. The telehandler makes its way to a place of safety, and it will be hopefully out of the way pretty quickly. So really swift work there actually to get them all picked up, all out of the way, and hopefully get us in a position where we can restart the race quickly. Now I wonder, Mr. Director, whether we can zoom in on that other car that's in the pit lane, because there was an extra one that came in and I didn't quite get the number. 22 and the white one, which is now inconveniently parked directly behind something 9. Here we go, it is 10. It's not something 9. Close enough. I had my eyes tested a couple of weeks ago. Apparently I can see fine. So it's just what's behind the eyes that's the issue, I think. Well, 10 comes right after 9, so I think you're close enough for me there. That is Ian Noble, who was the other. They've released the other car, who I've already forgotten. No, Paul Begley back out onto the track, I think, actually. I don't know whether he was meant to park at the end of pit lane for a pit lane start, and he's driven around the track. I'm not entirely sure if that was the plan, but anyway, we're missing a few of them, but we should hopefully be not too far away from a race restart. Still pretty hefty grid, though. It was 27 at the start. We're now probably down to about 24, 23, which is still a pretty decent grid, and it's good to see so many of these cars out in the 7-race series, racing so closely together, and it was pretty tight in qualifying as well. Not too much between, especially the top 10. Yeah, most definitely. It's a shame we've lost a couple of our heavy hitters there, haven't we? Mitchell, Armstrong, McCormack. You'd have to imagine Gary Smith might be a little off the pace with that front-end damage, but there were enough of them in that lead group that I don't think it will dampen the race at all. Tell you who will be happy about getting through that somewhat unscathed is Anthony Barnes, who started in 7th, our championship leader, because the car directly in front and behind him and one or two to his left were the ones that were involved in that incident. So somehow he made his way through there without getting involved in whatever happened. We can see, especially from the rear, Barnes has got a very distinctive livery because it says B4 RNS on the rear of his car, and it's a bright red rear end. And we're looking at it, he's actually got a bit of left rear damage, so he was somewhat involved, but has escaped major incident. Yeah, now he was the championship leader. We think, and I use the word think, please emphasise that he has done enough to win the championship because of dropped scores. If he were to have a non-score in this race, he would then
gain back some of the points that he was dropping from an earlier race. So we think he is the champion already, but even so, we'll be very happy not to have ended his season in the shunt at Redgate Corner. Mark Stansfield and Gary Smith, they are separated by my reckoning by only about 17 points for second place though, so that could still change around. If Stansfield were to have a bad race, then there is a chance maybe for Gary Smith to outscore him, but as we've said, Gary carrying damage for this race restart that is now imminent. It looks as though we're going to go for a full 30-minute restart as well. The time on the TSL timing live timing page is still saying 30 minutes, so we are about 15 minutes behind time, but it's one of the great things about these Motorsport Vision racing events. We have time built into the timetable between races to allow for delays. It's a really smart idea, and it means we don't have to shorten races all that often. The speedy work by the marshals and the recovery crews has also meant that we are able to get cars rolling pretty quickly, and we're not that far away now from take 2 of our 420R race.
Yeah, it is good to have such good preparation from the marshals. They had all of the equipment and low loaders and telehandler zoom blooms ready to go so that we could get racing as soon as humanly possible. All the parts of 7 Race Series cars were removed from the circuit. I wonder if there is any fluid still down at this section of the corner, because in the previous race, in the last lap, going into the Fogarty S's, which is where the safety car is coming into right now, we had a couple of cars skate off, which we thought potentially might have been some fluid. Doesn't look like there is anything now. Might have had a chance to dry by now as well, as the sun has just started to creep through. Surely it's starting to feel slightly warmer out there. It was very chilly this morning. There is a slight tailwind out today down the exhibition straight and the start-finish straight, which will be a tailwind into this corner here, the Melbourne loop hairpin, but then that is then a headwind going up towards Goddard's and then up through the middle sector. So it shall mean that the drivers ebb and flow. But you can see the 2x2 start grid formation beginning to go. We are again doing another rolling start. It looks like, yes, we are having a full 30-minute race restart because we didn't complete a lap, which the drivers on circuit I'm sure will be happy about, getting as much time as they possibly can on what is one of the best circuits in the UK.
Yes, it is. Right then, let's try this again, shall we? Deep breath, everybody. We've got the number 55, the blue and green car of Russ Ollivant on pole position. Gary Tootle in the red machine starting to his outside. Then Jose Magalesh and then Gary Smith. He's easy to spot, isn't he? Not just because of the yellow roll cage, but because of the missing front bodywork after his part in that red flag accident. Right then, 2x2 to the line, minus a few of the front runners, but we should still be in for a good 30 minutes of racing here in the Toyota 7 Race Series 420R Championship. Across the line they go, the red lights go out, a slightly more orderly run into turn 1, although they do now break ranks and go 3 wide into the first turn. Round the outside comes Gary Smith, regardless of the damage, from 4th place to the lead, gets a helping hand from Gary Tootle, but what commitment that was from Gary to get to the front with a car that surely is aerodynamically hampered. You wouldn't know it to look at it though, would you?
Oh, that was a great start. I did think I was looking just out the comms box window when we are pretty much opposite the start finish line. He did have a good run, and we're now going 2x2 pretty much through the old hairpin for, I think that was 4th, 5th and 6th position.
Yes, it was. Up the hill they climb out of Starkeys then. That's Tootle slipping backwards, I think, slightly. Smith under threat, though, now. He's punching that hole in the air, and the car has that front-end damage, drifts out wise. Magalesh there gets up the inside line. So Jose Magalesh, who started the weekend on pole position for yesterday's race, trying now to hit the front and, I think, lead his first laps of the weekend. But Gary Smith tenaciously hanging on round the outside. That delays them both, though, through Coppice Corner. It brings the 3rd place car into the mix as well, and they will run 3 wide down towards the S's.
Oh, someone back off, please. This could end up badly, but no, we're going. Oh, again, that was from 3rd to 1st in one straight, and we're 3 wide behind as well. Are they going to come to blow? Oh no, that is that was the driver that was going for the lead.
That was the number 19 of Mark Stansfield. So Mark Stansfield going around then. I don't think he's got too much damage, but Stansfield, remember, battling Gary Smith for 2nd in the championship. Smith is 3rd, because back up the inside briefly there goes Russ Ollivant, and he gets back through, and somehow, and Piers, please explain to me how this happened, it's Anthony Barnes who's going to lead the first lap.
I can't. I have no idea. I have no idea how that happened. There was, again, contact going through the Fogarty S's. Clearly contact was made, which led to, who was it that dropped down, the number 19, wasn't
Stansfield.
It? Yeah, Stansfield. But whatever happened there, Barnes capitalised on it. And he always seems to be in the right place at the right time, doesn't he, Barnes? And that's, I suppose, why he is champion-elect.
So Magales dropped down to 8th, look, so he must have been involved in the contact with Stansfield. That's obviously opened the doors beautifully then for Anthony Barnes to come through. It's Gary Smith in 2nd, O'Sullivan 3rd, Tootle in 4th, 5th place then for the 86 of Steve Riley, who started 11th on the grid. Then it is Tootle, Spark, Magales, Nagel and Greenaway completing the top 10. And keep an eye out on Jamie Winrow as well from the back of the grid. Remember, had that damage, had to make a pit stop for repairs yesterday. He's up into 12th position. That red flag has certainly benefited him.
Yeah, Winrow was the driver at the first half of the race yesterday that we were saying is almost there, almost always there or thereabouts, and he was looking like one of the favourites for the win until he had that unfortunate issue that meant he had to come into the pits. But he is making his way up through the order, and as long as these four at the front keep fighting, he's got a chance of this, because we still have 27 minutes remaining.
Yes, indeed. You've got to remind yourself of that sometimes. I think the drivers could do with reminding themselves of that too. It's a relatively long race, this, 30 minutes. It's not where you are at the end of the first lap that counts after all. So Barnes leads them down to the Melbourne hairpin for the second time. Gary Smith 2nd, Oliver 3rd, Tootle there in 4th, having a little peek to the inside. Then a small gap back to Steve Riley in 5th position. He's coming under threat from, I think, a recovering Jose Magales there in the silver number 61 car. He looks to have found a way past the 173 on this lap, which is Spark. Matt Spark, who started 14th and is well inside the top 10 now. Across the line we go though, and relatively orderly stuff. Now I'm intrigued to see how competitive Gary Smith's car is with that damage. I know he was on his toes at the start of the race, but he's in that slipstream of Anthony Barnes, seems able to stay with him, but maybe doesn't quite have the straight line speed to pull alongside.
Yeah, I think his best opportunity for the best result, considering he's got that front fairing missing, he will definitely be hampered in a straight line, because that clearly isn't as aerodynamically efficient as the other cars. His best opportunity is just staying in the lead group and hoping he just gets dragged to somewhere near the front and he can finish inside the top 4 or 5 cars. Because I think he's going to struggle to stay out in front for very long at any point, because his car, especially if it's at the front of the pack, will be cutting through the air less efficiently than everyone else's.
Yeah, you can see there that he can draft up to the back of Barnes, but then does seem to lose out at the end of the straight. Maybe a bit of front grip lost as well if the steering's been knocked out of line or something. So through the corners, Barnes seems able to gap him. But back down that exhibition straight, he's now actually got to turn from attack to defence as Gary Smith, because O'Sullivan is right behind him, peeks to the outside, then looks to the inside, but ultimately decides, rightly, I think, that he was too far back. Oh, full commitment for Gary Smith. I don't know if that was a mistake from Barnes or just a really good run from Smith.
No, I think there must be something on the circuit still. There's somewhere on the entry of the Fogarty S, because yesterday we didn't see anywhere near that much concertinaing forwards and backwards on the entry there. It's normally quite a one line, one speed chicane, but it looks like people are either just getting off slightly onto either a damp part or a bit where there's a bit of oil, and that might have contributed to the accident we saw last lap or the lap before between Magales and I can't remember the other driver. Stansfield, which of course then dropped them down the field. But Magales has had a tricky couple of days. He was right up towards the front of the first half of yesterday's race, and then dropped down the order towards the end, and he's done the same thing pretty much in this one. Hopefully he can make his way back through, but look at the fastest lap of the race, a 1:41.613. That is over a second faster the last lap of our leaders.
Yeah, Magales briefly held the fastest lap, but then Jamie Winrow managed to pip him, so Winrow up to 8th, Magales into 5th, and catching this lead group where O'Sullivan gets back at the inside, or defends actually on the inside line there at the old hairpin to keep Gary Smith behind him, but there are quick cars approaching from behind. Smith trying to come back at Oliphant. This is in danger of allowing Barnes to escape out in front. I know I said that a few times yesterday and it never quite panned out that way, but Barnes definitely has stolen a march now on this battle pack behind, and they're clearly holding each other up even more.
Yeah, this is Barnes' best opportunity to actually break away from the group. We didn't see that at all yesterday in either of the 7 race series categories, but he's just on that cusp now. We might have broken the toe, and what with Oliphant having that front end damage, it is going to hold up his lap time, and if he's in front of this next group, then he might be able to, Barnes might be able to pull away, and side by side to the Fogarty S's is not going to help them keep them the back, and that is, who's that in 5th place coming up to 4th, the number 61.
That's Magales up the inside now of Gary Tootle, who had a half-hearted go at getting past O'Sullivan into the Fogarty S's. It didn't really work, it delayed them both, and suddenly Magales is knocking on the door of the podium. Now the quicker he can break through this traffic, the better his opportunity to try and chase after the race leader perhaps. He's in 4th place as they round Goddard's for the 4th time of asking. Jamie Winrow on the back of this group as well, so a couple of quick cars looking to try and break through that group before the top two get too far away. The lead gap is a second, and actually Gary Smith only about a tenth of a second slower than the leader that time.
I was about to point out exactly the same thing. His last sector, which is a slow to two, basically the chicane and the 2 hairpins, it was 2/10 faster. Right. And the middle sectors, when he was fighting, wasn't actually that much slower, so clearly that front end damage not hurting his speed too badly at this stage at least.
Jose Magales up the inside, 2 wheels on the dirt, trying to take third from Russ Oliver, who stands his ground on the outside. Fair play to Russ, he didn't need to move out of the way, but again, look, going in on the inside line, getting it all crossed up. It's delayed Magales, it allows Tutel alongside, and not far behind them are Riley and Winrow too. Through the right-hander they go then. That's Nagel, I think, on the outside. No, sorry, it's the 32 of the other Tootle, isn't it? That's Lewis Tootle on the outside line. Can Magales at the very least fend off Gary Tootle? No, he can't. Gary sweeps around the outside. And, well, from attacking for third to now dropping down to fifth for Magales, that did not go to plan.
How there wasn't contact into the old hairpin, I have no idea. They were both fully crossed up, on, fully committed to the corner, and they somehow both made it through. And now it's too wide into the entry of Fogarty once again, but falling in single file is definitely the best thing to do in that chicane. It's quite tight.
It is indeed. Right then, the top two getting closer together on this lap. Smith a tenth quicker than the leader in the middle sector. There is Jamie Winrow though. Jamie Winrow is now into 6th place, I think, as they head out of the Melbourne hairpin. Right ahead of him, Jose Magales looking to the outside of Gary Tootle into Goddard's. That won't work on the way in, but he's just trying to get that better run out of the turn, get the slipstream down the pit straight, and surely he's going to have a go into Redgate corner. Tootle is sort of hovering towards the middle of the road, but there is still an inviting gap on the inside. Magales doesn't want to go on the inside, though. That will slow him down on the exit of the corner and maybe allow Jamie Winrow to get alongside. So they stay as they are for now, but they're a good distance now away from those top two peers.
Yeah, the top two are breaking away in their own sections, and the gap is coming down to the lead. It's now, what, 0.8 of a second, which is on the cusp of that toe, the area which you can get some reduced drag from the car in front. But this gap battle is going to continue on, I think, for the remainder of the race, and I think Winrow is looking pretty good at the moment. He's got good pace, he's right up, he's making his way forward, and if he can get past these two, he may be able to drive up to the back of the front group.
Yeah, because we still have 20 minutes to go. That's a long time for someone of Jamie Winrow's undoubted capabilities. He's up the inside of Magales now into Coppice corner, and I think he should be able to make that move stick. The danger here is that Magales could get hung out to dry, and Steve Riley in the blue number 86 car might follow him through as well. Actually, he sort of is the one who ends up without a slipstream down the back straight, almost banging wheels with Magales. As up the inside comes Winrow to gain his second place in as many corners, trying to find a way past Tootle, who stands his ground on the outside. Winrow now finds himself on the outside line. How quickly your fortunes can change.
Yeah, Winrow was going to get done up the inside, I thought, with Magales, but he got a great gear change by looks. But oh no, there's going to be contact, a full lock up, and there was bits of Caterham once again falling off and wheel arches going banging, but that was somehow everyone continued on and without any serious damage.
Philip Nagel that was in the 89 who had it all locked up. That is the battle for the race lead. Gary Smith's done really well actually to chase down the race leader Anthony Barnes. Russ Oliver in the background dipping 2 wheels onto the dirt, but the decisions that Gary Smith makes in the next lap or so could be crucial towards how this race pans out. If he decides to sit behind Anthony Barnes for the next 19 minutes and then pounce on the last lap, I don't think anyone's going to catch these two, but if he decides he wants the lead, that could start to hold them up. They are 5 seconds up the road from Russ Oliver in third, who in turn has the best part of a 3-second gap back to that battle for fourth. So there's no need really for Gary Smith to go on the attack just yet.
Yeah, I think Gary Smith would be unwise to try and take the lead here, because I think he would by now know that he's got that front end damage. Clearly not hurting his speed too badly, but his pace advantage over Anthony Barnes in first place is not going to be great enough that he's going to be able to pull away, because the toe is so strong. So with a 5.3 second gap as it was, or a 5-second gap to third place Oliver over the line, if they just follow each other for the next, as you say, 18.5 minutes, or at least 17 minutes, they're going to guarantee themselves a first or a second as long as they don't collide on the final lap.
Gary Smith is weaving around behind Anthony Barnes, whether that's to try and get some clear air on the nose or to try and force a mistake out of the leader, I'm not so sure. There goes Oliver in third. It is Jamie Winrow in fourth. Barnes defending the race lead down into the Melbourne hairpin, so actually Barnes sort of making the decision for Gary Smith there, whether Gary was going to attack or not. Barnes clearly thought that he might, and so went defensive into the Melbourne hairpin. Smith right behind, weaves to the inside, weaves to the outside. the body language of that number 20 car says attack, doesn't it? I don't think he's settling for second.
I don't think there's any working together going on here at all. There was a defensive manoeuvre into the Melbourne hairpin from Barnes, and then a look around the outside from Smith, and that's going to continue on. But that gap all the while is going to get eroded. I'll say that, actually. The gap's extended on the previous lap, so what do I know?
Yeah, it's not like you're a former professional racing driver or anything. Caterham Racing, though, 7 Series racing, a very different kind of racing, and well, these drivers know what they're doing, clearly, and Gary Smith wants to try and get to the front as quickly as he possibly can. Down through the old hairpin they go. A bit of understeer picked up maybe there by Barnes, just drifted wide of the apex curve. That means Smith carries the extra speed up the hill. The gap is left for him, interestingly, on the right-hand side of the road. That gives him the inside for McLean's, but I think Barnes is late enough on the brakes. Yeah, manages to stay in front. You're right, Piers. Russ Olivan's pace in 3rd place isn't that strong, but interestingly, Jamie Winrow, who's now broken through into 4th position, well, he did a 41.6. That was about half a second quicker than the race leaders, but I wonder whether he's now going to be able to go quicker in clean air.
Yeah, we'll see about that. And he's, what, how many seconds down on the lead now? 7.9 with 16 minutes is doable, but he's going to have to, well, these two, for Winrow to be up in a fight for the lead, these two are going to have to continue fighting and losing time. Winrow's going to have to set purple sector after purple sector, as we see Smith looking up the inside of the Melbourne Loop, getting it done this time. Barnes would be wise just to sit behind him.
I think you're right. Well, let's see if he's going to do that. Smith has got the lead. But
well,
of course he's not. There we go, straight to the outside line. But look at the extra speed that he had up the hill. I think that in the slipstream, Gary Smith is capable of lapping clearly a little bit quicker than Barnes, but I do think that Barnes' advantage in the slipstream will be even bigger. Here we go, down the pit straight, visibly closing. You can see out of the window that gap coming down as they flash past our commentary position. His nose to the outside, but it is the outside line, and so Gary Smith will hang on the inside at Redgate Corner, but Anthony Barnes quite clearly has a speed advantage when he is tucked in the slipstream. He's going to try and use that again now to make a move down through the Craner curves, through the right at Hollywood, then the left at the Craners. 42.2s for these two, whilst Jamie Winrow in 4th place did a 41.9, so 3/10 quicker, but he's still 7.4 seconds back. Yeah,
that gap's actually extending. These two, despite the fact they're fighting, they're clearly got some good pace, because their last lap, or sorry, Smith's last lap was only 3/10 slower than Winrow. So that even if they carry on at this pace deficit to Winrow in currently in 4th place, they're not going to get caught.
At the moment, I'd tend to agree with you. In fairness, they're not really going side by side through the corners, are they? They might slipstream alongside each other down the straight, but they're not holding each other up too much doing that. It's when you start going side by side through the old hairpin, through McLean's and Coppice and the chicane, that's where you really start to lose time. And yet Barnes decides not to try and go around the outside of Gary Smith into the Fogarty S's. Through the left, through the right. Smith does look good through there, doesn't he? He's not lacking in commitment.
No, very good through there. He gained about 4 car lengths, so potentially Barnes just taking it a little bit easy through what is an easy, tricky corner, and then a lock up from Smith allows Barnes straight on the back. But as much as you can see, Smith is pushing hard to try and break the toe. I think it's going to be almost impossible.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, the other element of this battle that we need to focus on is that Anthony Barnes is racing for a championship. I know that mathematically we think he's done enough already for the title, but if he were to have a bit of contact in this race that led to a disqualification, you can't drop a disqualification. That would have to count as a 0, and at the moment it's the drop scores that are saving him a little bit and meaning that he's mathematically out of reach from the rest of the field. So
as long as he's not a naughty boy. So
exactly.
We'll see how that plans out. But it's going to be quite interesting to watch this battle. It is the closest battle inside the top 10 at the moment, I think, apart from actually Greenway and Spark in 9th and 10th. But oh, in fact, this battle right here, I think that is that battle, isn't it? That is Spark in 173, Greenway in the 7. They're all going hammer and tongs, and actually pretty much 10th backwards is one line of cars.
And don't forget that Michael Stansfield, Mark Stansfield is in this group. He's second in the championship, had that spin at the collision at the Fogarty S's early on. And he's trying his best now to recover up the order. So that again takes some of the pressure off Anthony Barnes. Barnes might not know though that Stansfield is so deep in the field, and so he'll have to race as if Stansfield is still on course for a good points haul, but Stansfield battling with Gary Smith for second in the championship. So again, there you've got Barnes, who's quite happy maybe just to kind of settle for second place, whereas Smith needs every point that he can get to try and move into second place in the standings.
Who knows, maybe Barnes is just toying with Smith at the moment, because again, he knows that he doesn't have to win the race. He knows he just wants to have a good fun race out there. Maybe he's thinking, oh, I'll just make a race of this, because if he sat behind him, it'd be quite boring until the end of the race. But, well, boring for the lead. It's not going to be boring for this group here. I mean, that's what, 5-6 cars in one shot there?
It is indeed. There is the 19 of Mark Stansfield, just ahead of the number 7 of Greenaway. So Greenaway's lost a few positions on this lap. He was 9th at the start of it. The car behind him locks up, and then someone comes steaming round the outside of everybody. That was the number 59 machine of White, Adam White, who started 26th on the grid, and he just gained another place or two around the outside of the Melbourne hairpin. Up the inside goes Stansfield into Goddard's. That is to clear the number 173 of Matt Spark. Good move there.
That was a very good move, because he went in late but then managed to stay right on the curve all the way around the corner, didn't even slide an inch wide.
Yeah, again, by going in early, I suppose you hook that curve, don't you, and help the rotation of the car. Bit of a squeeze there from Greenaway as up the inside came Adam White. So Adam White really on the move now. That puts them into 11th place as they round Redgate Corner once again. They make their way down through the Craner curves. As it stands, by the way, Stansfield, by my maths, is doing enough to beat Gary Smith. So even with Smith out in front, he needed Stansfield to finish a little bit further down the order in order to snatch that second place away from him. Hairpin, they head then, this big gaggle of cars that are fighting over basically 8th place on back. It's a group that's headed by Philip Nagel in the number 89. Stansfield right in behind him, whilst at the front of the field, Anthony Barnes goes back to the lead.
Yeah, I think we probably have seen a couple of changes, or missed a couple of changes of position, but it won't make a huge difference because they're still 7 seconds clear of Winrow in third. Winrow does still have that fastest lap and is lapping at about the same pace as these two behind, so even though they're fighting, they are still the class of the field pace-wise, and a move straight back up the inside of the Melbourne hairpin. They're making a good race of this.
They certainly are. Gary Smith, I'm really impressed with what Gary's doing here with a car that cannot be going as quickly as it should be with that missing front bodywork. I know these cars are not known for being particularly aerodynamic in design. That's kind of the point of 7 Series racing, but missing that front bodywork will be certainly hurting his straight line speed. Across the line they go then, so the leaders do low 1:42s. Here comes Jamie Winrow, a 42.1 for him. So again, he's only taken a 10th out of the race leader, and Russ Olivan staying right with him in 4th.
Yeah, Russ Olivan was the fastest of that group, the front 4 with a 41.7, but again aided by the toe off the back of Winrow.
Exactly, so that flatters to deceive slightly, but will he choose to sit behind Winrow, try and work with him to catch the leaders, or has he realised that the leaders are not to be caught? Has a little look to the inside, ready to taking a different line there through the Craner curves, but that maybe hurt his exit speed a bit from the old hairpin. The slipstream will group them back together again as they head through Starkey's and Schwann's curve. But Oliver not looking like he's really looking to attack just for the time being. Round McLean's up towards the highest part of the circuit at Coppice Corner, where that wind might just start to unsettle the cars ever so slightly. But neat and tidy for these two who continue their battle for 3rd position. This is where we'll really see what Olivan's plans are, whether he decides to try and attack, as Anthony Barnes is for the race lead. Goes up the inside this time. Gary Smith tried to stand his ground on the outside, but Barnes goes through.
Yeah. Changing places, that's the 222, I believe, that's come in the pits.
Julian Carey.
Julian, unfortunately, getting some attention, which means he's going to be out of contention. He'll probably go a lap down once these two pass the pits in just a moment. Yeah,
that's a shame. So Carey in trouble. That leaves 18 cars now, I think, that are going to be circulating on the lead lap. Up the hill come Winrow and Olivan. Now in sectors on this lap, they've been a bit quicker than the leaders in sector 1, a bit slower than them in sector 2, so they're pretty much lapping at the same pace. What they need is a safety car really to have any chance of catching the lead 2, who once again come across the line with Barnes doing 1:42.3, Winrow 42.1, a couple of tenths gain. He's now 6.5 seconds off the lead, so starting to make inroads. His only hope really, and the same goes for Russ Olivan, is that Barnes and Smith really do start knocking lumps out of each other in the final 9 minutes of racing, because we are into that final third of the race where maybe the intensity levels within that battle for the lead could start to pick up, and that might just be enough to allow Winrow to start taking more time out of them.
Yeah, it's going to need some sort of extenuating circumstance in terms of either contact or an outside of intervention from a safety car for Winrow to catch the front two, I think, because these two, as much as they are fighting hammer and tongs, passing each other at least once a lap in the last few laps, their lap times are not dropping off considerably at all, which is quite impressive actually.
It is, isn't it? They are in the low 42s usually. Barnes to the front again this time, but Gary Smith closing back in. 8.5 minutes to go. Winrow seems to suddenly be dropping Russ Ollivant, I notice, so Winrow is perhaps in for a slightly lonely final third of the race. If he can't catch these leaders, and he can't because he drops 6/10 to them in the middle sector alone. Actually, Barnes and Smith both putting in personal best middle sectors. Smith weaves around, skates under braking into the Melbourne hairpin, takes a tighter line over the curb there, but nowhere to go with Barnes parking his car on the apex ahead.
Yeah, it's good to see these cars both at the front completely in at one with the car they're driving, and you know, you can see them on the limit through all the corners, the cars skirting around. Slight differences in line is interesting as well, but there's battling further down the field that continues on.
That's Mark Stansfield at the head of this group now, so he's up into 8th position. But again, you can make this progress through a group of cars, but then you just can't break away from them at the front, and immediately he has to start defending again. It's the 89 car that's trying to get back up alongside him of Nagel, Philip Nagel. Oh, 3 wide, big lock-up, banging, and that's the 39 car that comes out without the worst of Mark Drain. It was Greenaway who came up the inside. I think maybe the 59 of Adam White was the one stuck in the middle, and let's hope that car can get going, Piers.
That was dominoes, wasn't it? Up the inside, 3 wide. 3 wide is always high risk, but contact between the two on the inside, shuttled the middle car to the outside, and then wheel-to-wheel contact, spun around, and unfortunately dropped down the order quite considerably, the number 39, which we are now seeing drop right down the order.
Yeah, Mark Drain then unfortunately out of the race. There goes Nagel back round the outside of Stansfield. So Mark Stansfield down to 9th, but we know that at the moment that should be enough for him to clinch 2nd place in the points in the Toyota 7 Race Series 420R Championship. Defending there is Nagel into McLean's corner. That sort of split this pack up now, so you got Nagel, Stansfield and Spark, I think that is, running nose to tail. Yes, it is the 173 of Spark, Matt Spark in behind, who was right at the centre of some of that drama, but just managed to escape on the tail of the couple of cars ahead of him. Down the back straight, Stansfield to the inside, and I think, Piers, he's going to make that move stick. Yeah,
you need to get all the way alongside into the fog of CSs. You don't really want to be going side by side through there, but a good move. However, an exit is poor, which is allowing the 89 of Nagel to go back potentially and take that position back. No, a defensive manoeuvre taking a shallower line in means that move has not been able to be returned.
New fastest lap for the race leader, Anthony Barnes, but Gary Smith very much going with him, only half a second between those two, and they're now nearly 8 seconds clear of Jamie Winrow, who has dropped Russ Ollivant, but you feel has maybe now backed off a little bit and settled for 3rd position. We've had a change for 5th place meanwhile, as Gary Tootle gets himself back ahead of Jose Magales. That happened off camera some way up the road from this group of cars that barrels down towards Redgate Corner. Move being made on the inside line there. Is that going to be successful? I don't think it is. That's the 59 car of White on the outside, Welch in the 53, but he couldn't quite get through.
Yeah, Welch and White getting very, very close on the apex of the Redgate there. We're going down the Redgate sweep, the Craner curves now, and this battle continues on for the lower end of the top 10.
Yeah, Stansfield back ahead of Nagel now, so into 8th position. They're about 6 seconds behind the loneliest man in the race, actually, which is the number 86 machine of Steve Riley. Now, penalty, 5 seconds for Mark Stansfield. Mark Stansfield, a 5-second penalty. That has to be for exceeding track limits.
Must be.
It doesn't tell us on the timing screen, but that is the usual punishment, isn't it? 39 there might drain into the pit lane, but Stansfield with a penalty. Now he's at the front of this big group of cars. He's going to fall right down the order as a result of that, and all of a sudden Gary Smith could be back in with a chance of 2nd place in the points.
Yeah, as it stands, a 5-second penalty would take him from 8th position, 25.4 to 30.4, down into almost 14th place. If he can gain about another half second, he'll jump up to down to 15th place. If he can get another half second, he'll jump ahead of Drew in 14th.
Now, the good news is this will end up becoming one of his drop scores, actually, so I think he might still be okay, but he's certainly cutting it fine, isn't he? Gary Smith, if he could win this race, I think would miss out by about 6 points for that 2nd place in the championship. That is really heartbreaking at the end of a long season of racing, and I'm sure, Piers, you get to the end of the season in that situation, you look back then at all the times where you lost a point here, a point there, it all adds up over a year, doesn't it?
It does, and it's consistency that wins championships, or at least gives you positions in a championship. And we mentioned it yesterday, it's how good are your bad days that decide things. And Smith is having a pretty good day today, right up at the front, despite that near miss on the first start we had, but still right up at the front and is still pressuring for the lead. And if he wins, then that'll be a great day. But as you say, you know, he might have had a 7th place that should have been a 4th earlier on in the year, and that could be the difference.
And that can so easily happen in 7 racing, where maybe the top 10 are covered by a 2nd and a half of the flag. 2nd place can easily become 8th place through really just no fault of your own, just being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Are there any bonus points for fastest lap?
There is a bonus point for fastest
Well,
lap.
currently Smith holds that.
That's a good point, so that closes that down even more, actually. So 5 points I think he's going to miss out by if he can win the race. At the moment he's in 2nd place. He's stuck on the outside line down at the Melbourne hairpin. 3 minutes to go, so time running out now in this one. I think we're about to start the penultimate lap of the race, and Anthony Barnes is really going to have to get his elbows out.
Put your money on a winner.
Oh, I think Barnes might just have enough here.
Well, I'm going to go Smith, just to split it. Here we go. Come on, Smith.
Which, of course, means that Jamie Winrow is going to win, because these two will end up in a gravel trap somewhere, knowing, oh, look, let's hope it doesn't come to that. We'd like this to be a good, clean battle to the flag. Barnes defending nicely in front. Is that damage on Gary Smith's car going to prevent him from making that decisive move, I wonder?
I don't think it is. I've seen enough times where they've gone past each other this race to think this is not done yet. The gap's actually a little bigger than it has been the last few laps, but by the time they get to McLean's, it'll be very close as Megales tries up the inside very late on the number 64 of Tootle, but doesn't get that move done. He'll have to try later on this lap.
Yes, he will. Out of the old hairpin they go, then climbing up the hill for the race leaders. 1 lap to go at the end of this one, remember, so doesn't have to be now that Gary Smith makes his move, but maybe a bit of a dress rehearsal coming up for what he wants to do on the final lap. I'll be watching with interest to see whether Gary lifts off the throttle coming down this exhibition straight, or whether he decides to commit to a manoeuvre, takes a tighter line out of coppice, tucks into the wheel tracks now of the champion-elect, Anthony Barnes, who defends heavily down the back straight. Smith to the outside. Did he lift there, do you think?
I reckon there was a lift there. He had enough of an overspeed that he could have at least gone side by side. Whether he's lifting tactically to not show his hand, or whether he just didn't want to go side by side into the Fogarty S's remains to be seen. He's now launching an attack into the Melbourne hairpin, going outside, forcing Barnes to the inside, looking for the cutback. Gets to the 2nd apex, but Barnes parks it on the apex and drives very well, but he's going to be under pressure. Barnes will have to defend into the final corner again. Smith looks right. Just enough of an overlap to not, or just enough of a defensive manoeuvre to not allow Smith an overlap into the final corner. We are starting what will be the final lap. Nose to tail, the gap less than a car length over the line.
Down to Redgate they go. Barnes defends the inside, but is this too early to make the move for Gary Smith? There's something about Smith's body language that says he's not really fully committing to a challenge just yet. He knows that decisive moment will likely come down the back straight, slides his way out of Redgate corner, doing everything he can to stay within a car length of Anthony Barnes as they head down towards the old hairpin for the final time.
Yeah, squirreling around on those treaded tyres that we have in this Caterham 410 series, and they're as close as they've ever been. He's ducking out of the slipstream at the moment to maybe time his pass.
Yeah, absolutely. Doesn't want to get too close too soon. Up through Schwantz towards McLean's corner. The key moment is coming up. There is a back marker ahead. I hope they don't catch it on this final half a lap, because that could be decisive. There it went. Look, I think it's the number 14 of William Scully that's about to go a lap down.
Here we go.
Let's hope that it doesn't get in the way. Here come the leaders then, out of Coppice corner.
Crunch.
This is the moment. Is he going to make the move down the back straight, Piers?
Oh, crunch time now. He's got in right in the slipstream. Not close enough this time. It's going to be the final sector of the lap. Exit of Fogarty S's right here is going to be absolutely crucial. Barnes had a good exit, so has Smith. Barnes is going to have to go defensive, otherwise Smith will fill that gap immediately.
Yeah, down the hill they go. Barnes isn't defending the inside line, really moves across in the braking zone. Can he stop the car? He runs out wide. Gary Smith on the inside line. This is surely his opportunity, but Barnes gets the traction, gets the power down nicely off the corner, and I think he might be out of striking range now. Down into the final corner, Gary Smith throws everything at it in the final braking zone, but I don't think he's quite going to get there. The back marker though getting slightly in the way. Drag race to the line. Here comes Gary Smith. He's going to pull alongside, but doesn't quite get there by a 1/10 of a second. Anthony Barnes claims the victory, and with it we think the championship, whilst Gary Smith will come home in 2nd place. A real thrilling finish to that one though. Jamie Winrow comes home in 3rd, ahead of Russ Ollivant in 4th position. Now, what's been going on further back whilst we've been focusing on that lead battle? Quite a lot, I would imagine. Mark Stansfield's name dropping down the timing screen as a result of that 5-second penalty at the moment is showing 16th position. We'll have to wait and see where he does end up. Out of Goddard's corner comes some of the battles. There goes Stansfield actually across the line, so we'll see how far down he drops. He's certainly going to be out of the top 10, but I think this will become a drop score and he should be okay for second in the championship, just about.
Let's have a look. Stansfield 14th place. So what a way to finish the race. It kind of settled down a little bit in the middle, not quite as crazy as it was yesterday, probably due in part to us losing a few cars in the first lap kerfuffle. But no, a great race and a great finish, a great show put on by both Barnes and Smith. But our championship winner is also our winner of the race.
Yeah, absolutely fitting that, really, isn't it, that Anthony Barnes was able to conclude his season with a race victory, and a really well managed one at that. Fantastic drive that from the driver of car number 4. So Anthony Barnes claims a win to go along with his podium from yesterday. Gary Smith second, but has to settle, we think, for third in the championship. Jamie Winrow from the back of the grid finishes third, ahead of Russ Ollivant and Jose Magalesh at the back of the top 5. Then it was Gary Tootle from the front row to 6th by the flag, ahead of the 86 machine of Steve Riley. Then it was the 59 of Adam White, who started 26th on the original grid, whilst the top 10 is completed by Matt Welch. Then in 11th position, we have got Duncan Greenaway, 12th place then for the number 72 of Matt Drew. 13th was the other Tootle, Lewis Tootle, whilst Mark Stansfield finished, I think, 6th on the road, but after a time penalty for track limits, ends up down in 14th. Then it was Holroyd and Noble, the last cars on the lead lap. Ryan Grant was a lap down, so too was the 173 of Matt Spark after some contact early on. Scully also one lap down, whilst the only retirement from the restarted race was the number 39 machine of Mark Drain. So then there was a list of those who didn't make it even that far. Julian Carey was out, and then a whole host of them who were involved in that red flag incident earlier on, including yesterday's race winner Jay McCormack, which was a real shame. But a fantastic way to conclude the Toyo Tyres 7 race series for 2023. Some brilliant racing has been produced at every round this season, and we finished in fine style with a pair of exciting races here at Donington Park. We've got the 310Rs to come a little bit later on in the day, so we're not quite done with Toyo Tyres 7 race series action for the time being. Be sure to join us later on for the last race of the season.